What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. This is the Get the Bag podcast, episode 55. 55 episodes, 55 weeks. We've come
We've
in
done
at the
it.
same time or around the same time every week to give you guys some content, some knowledge. And this is the last episode of the year.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
uh it's crazy. Just around I think we went through our 1 year anniversary a couple weeks ago, and
Mhm.
we started around the time of the holidays, and to be here, going into a whole new year, I feel like a completely different person. And then,
Yeah.
we were talking about it a little bit offline, but before we, dig into that, hit the like, subscribe, follow us on IG. We have some really exciting stuff coming up. Really, really exciting things coming up in 2023 that we're really excited to share with you. But yeah, without further ado, today we're just gonna, just have a conversation. Like, how has 2022 been for us? A recap with like the podcast, a recap with like our business, and what's ahead. What's ahead for 2023? We kind of talked a little bit about it a couple weeks ago in our 1 year anniversary, but we really want to uncover how we're setting ourselves up, and we hope that helps you in uncovering your goals and what everyone wants to focus on. But yeah, 2022 is a
Yeah.
wrap in a couple days.
I know. I can't believe it's here. So it came so fast, and like you said, it's there's a lot happened this year, and I'm just glad that we are celebrating a full year of being on the podcast and
Absolutely.
um, you know giving people some knowledge about real estate and our experiences as well too. And we've gone through ups and downs throughout the year, and we've learned a lot. And, we just want to share some of those things with you guys today and see how we can go into 2023 a lot better, and how you guys can as well too. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I guess for 2022 for me, in terms of a recap, before we get kind of in on like the business side and everything. I mean, I think on the podcast side, I think it was just showing up, right? Like learning,
mhm.
and now we kind of understand what the process is and what it takes to really grow our podcast. I
Yeah.
think before it was just kind of like, oh yeah, let's start this sounds fun. Let's start this, and throw out some topics that we as like beginners in real estate had, and people that will continue to have starting out if they getting into wholesaling or whatever
hmm
aspect of real estate, and understanding like the direction we wanted to go to. I think it was just a really, really fun adventure. It was something new that we've never experienced before. Now we have like, the whole setup. We have the mics, we have
hmm
the systems that we're working on as well. But I think the biggest thing for us is like definitely having the guests on, and I think that's something
hmm
we want to focus on next year.
Yeah.
Is interviewing more people, getting to know more people, um, and reaching out to more people to
Yeah.
get to know, because there's people doing amazing things that maybe aren't an influencer per se, or don't have their business out there, literally their business out there on like what it is that they're doing, and or
hmm
maybe they're beginners that are killing it, that came from crazy situations, and I think we they deserve, their voices deserve to be heard, and I think that was the biggest thing. And there's tons of highlights from last year. I think I've written down here, like obviously
hmm
speaking to the ladies of Wire, Kilani and
Yeah.
Brittany, they were huge, and we're continuing that relationship even now, and having them,
hmm
in our lives, and um, the relationships we built with them. And obviously we've had Jeff, Eric, we've had Austin. I think I wrote down like
Yeah.
Dennis, we had Chuck, Gene, Chase, who was like our last
hmm
guest. And I'm sure I missed out a few, so I'm sorry if I did. I'm just literally thinking off the top of my head. But these are all people that I'm hoping to have back next year as guests, to see how far they've come as well. Because
Right.
maybe some of the people here don't know, but we follow a lot of these people on Instagram, and seeing what they're doing now
hmm
and how they're adjusting to the market, I think is really cool. Um, and I think people, it's just always great to see like a round two of like where are you at now. So
Right,
I think in
right.
terms of the podcast, that was a big win for sure.
Yeah, we're hoping to expand the guest list a little bit this next year, and possibly do some traveling if
Yeah.
possible to go see with some of the guests. And so we're trying to, you know, do it up a little bit in 2023. Not just the traditional where we way we've been doing it. So there's a lot of things that we've learned just from the podcast and things. So hopefully you'll see, us grow. I mean, we've grown so much since the first podcast, so
Yeah.
and then you will continue to grow in 2023 and, hopefully up our production, quality and, all of this. So we're trying to, you know, have this a pleasant experience for you guys visually, sound-wise, and then with all the knowledge that we can bring to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not gonna go into detail because I think our 1 year anniversary or things that we learned running a
Mhm.
podcast. I think we went over a lot of those, but I would say like those are probably the biggest highlights of 2022 in terms of our podcast is the relationships we built with these people, and I think
Mhm.
that's something we'll continue doing, like you said. But in terms of our business and just kind of in general, I think 2022 was definitely a roller coaster, for me a little bit, like, where I had my highs, like, really well or, like, I was kinda in between or, I really had my lows.
Mhm.
Um, and, it was hard finding that consistency, and I think we've talked about, like, consistency is what brings success, right, into your
Mhm.
business or whatever, and that's the hardest part. Like, you can have a plan, you can have a process, but if you're not consistent on that plan, it's not gonna do well. You're not gonna find the success that you want because it's like and this is something we were talking about earlier, you're kind of all over the place because
Mhm.
distractions here, opportunities here, and like, you're not following that path that you wrote out for yourself. So I think for me personally, I mean, I started out um like I feel like I hit the ground running going into 2022. I was like super motivated. Like wrote out my goals, did like the 12-week year. It was super like
Mhm.
process oriented. Like, I'm gonna write out my goals, I'm gonna keep track of them, I'm gonna do this and that. And I accomplished a lot, worked on my business credit,
Mhm.
was able to travel to, meet new people and, close deals. But it's like, um, a lot of things changed too. I moved from
Yeah.
NorCal to SoCal,
You
and
did.
that really messed with me, like, in terms of getting back into the swing of things because
Mm.
it was such an interruption into, like,
Yeah.
what I was doing that it, like, threw out everything because I'm still a one-woman team,
Mhm.
and that also was, like, it slowed down everything,
Yeah.
and it made me realize too, well, can and I think somebody had asked, like, "Well, can the business run without you in it?" And obviously at the
Mhm.
moment, no.
Mhm.
And if, can your business scale without you? Definitely no. And so it made me, prioritize, like, okay, I need to get my SOPs really tight because I had them out, but not, they hadn't been updated because a lot of my business has changed. And I think that's also another thing is you can have all these processes, you can have all these, things written out, these goals, but
Mhm.
if you're not taking any action, if you're not following it and like changing your mind here and there or changing stuff up, it's really going to be hard to accomplish any goal
Yeah.
because it's like you're not focused, you're not simplifying things. There's too much junk. So, moving was a big, it was like a lot more exhausting, like
Mhm.
mentally, physically than I imagined. And so getting back in the swing of things took a little bit longer. But I was able to kind of end the year strong, got, deals under contract, scheduling some closings next month.
Mhm.
But it that's that's where you like momentum is so huge,
Yeah.
right? And I think you've talked about it, right, Tim? Like,
Yeah.
um, when you have that momentum going, you have to keep going. Like, you have to
Yeah.
keep things moving because once things stop, it's so hard to pick things back up. You
It
know, you
is.
imagine you're like on a bike and then you stop and then having to pedal again. Imagine you're going uphill. That's really hard. And so that was a big lesson for me is, I'm not gonna focus on like these building out, writing things out as a systemizing everything in terms of like following this template. I'm just gonna do what works for me, what
Mhm.
I'm comfortable with.
Mhm.
I'm gonna focus on these one or two things and then just focus on that and be consistent with that. And
Right.
I feel like that sometimes we just add too much on our plate. And I think that for middle of 2022, that was kind of my case. So once I simplified everything, um, things starting to start going out a little bit smoother. So I'm gonna keep rolling into that in 2023. And
Mhm.
I'll talk about the 2023 goals, but that's sort of like my 2022 recap in terms of business wise. Because personally, like we can uncover that too. um,
Right.
that's a whole other thing, right? Where it's
Yeah,
like you're
it
supposed to
is.
write goals too, and like um, you're supposed to strive for these things as well, but they all kind of correlate together. They all affect one another in some way. Um, but it's went through some hard times too personally, like lost some
Yeah.
family members, and
Mhm.
it was really tough, kind of going through that, and then having to um, navigate life too and business. And it's at that point, you're like, who cares about the business, right? Like,
Right.
you just have such a different perspective and like what life is about, like what matters. And
Mhm.
I think I was talking about this earlier on the morning call, and I listened to a quote. I was watching some interview, and they said you have to be unselfish before no, you have to be selfish before you're unselfish.
Mm.
Um, and like I'm really kind of going into the new year that way. And I don't mean selfish of like I don't care about my wife or anybody else like that.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's just creating expectations in that sense. But it's like I'm focusing on me, and before I can help anybody else, like I need to get my stuff together. I need to make
Mhm.
sure I'm okay. It's taking care of the self. So that's one thing I'm really focusing on going into the new year. I started therapy a couple weeks
Mm.
ago, which has been huge for me too.
Personal
And then like
growth.
just getting my
That's
body
awesome.
right too. So just like the general picture of um like, I wanna be as complete of a person as possible and working on myself, and I can't I can't help other people if I'm not okay, going back to the oxygen mask example on the airplane,
Right.
so all that yeah, all that kind of thing, really really affects you, but I feel like everything happens for a reason, and, I think this is why, like, I feel like 2023 is gonna be really special
Mhm.
because, not that it's, like, personal, but, like, it's just I'm coming in with such a wise mindset than from last year. I felt like I was coming in, I was like, "I'm gonna go through a wall," and it was, like, really aggressive, but, like, here I'm just, like, woosah mindset. So, yeah, that's kinda me in a recap, I guess, for 2022.
Yeah, that's dope. I know that we kinda talk almost a daily basis, so I kinda know a lot of what was going on and stuff,
Yeah,
and I know the move was really big for you, and just getting settled in the new city, I mean, that's
it's
just
hard.
a challenge, yeah, challenge
Yeah,
in its own, and then bringing your business along, even though you can do it remotely, it's just, um, it it gets, I guess, you know, bogged down, or kinda push things to the side just because you're concentrating on getting everything moved and getting settled and all that, and then you had a full-time job on top of that too,
yeah,
so
yeah, I didn't even add that.
yeah. Yeah, so it's just like, I totally understand that, and it takes, really it takes about, a year just to get back on track from that shock of
Yeah,
moving, right? And I feel like now that there's a lot still going on, but it's still like you're back on track with some of the deals that you were closing, especially on the the end of the year, and so, kinda my recap has been, I really didn't wanna go into the year, I guess like I did kinda last year and stuff, and how things had rolled out, and, So I kind of wanted to um, better my processes in the wholesaling side, and then um, and we didn't even throw in the market shifting, right?
Oh, wait,
Into
what happened?
I know, right? We didn't even, mention that, like,
Right,
so aside from just running your business and then doing the things that you need to do, and then you have highs and lows, and then you have a industry where it can shift based on, what's happening in the market, that just throws another wrench into it because you have to adjust your business to accommodate that market shift.
right,
And so, going into a seller's market, whether it's going to the buyer's market, there's shifts that you have to make, or learning new strategies to implement into your business to generate more revenue for your company and generate more cash flow, right? So,
right,
cash flow has been an up and down thing, at least for my business too, because it's been, a lot of highs and then a lot of lows, and there's in between of, putting more processes in so things are more automated. And so, that has been, I guess, one of my challenges in this year was just trying to implement that the right way. How do I do that without hiring other VAs? Or so I kind of, Chris kind of mentioned this yesterday on our call, is that, you know, working with people that can, that need to learn the business, but you provide them with some leads, or you provide
yeah,
them with some value to help them close their first deal or whatever. So I think I've to supplement some of the low times is that I've, brought some people in to where I can show them how to do the business, but at the same time, you know, um, work with them so we could do deals together, right?
right,
So I think what he was saying last night kind of resonated with me on what how my strategy was in the middle of the year. And then, towards the end of the year, I started getting a little bit more deals just because I didn't want to get caught up like I did last year, where I wasn't concentrating on the wholesaling side of my business to where I wasn't, there was no cash flow coming in the first part of the year. Right. So
right, right,
that's kind of, and I've got several deals now that are going to help with, the first quarter of the year, which is great because, I told myself I wasn't going to get into that trap again. But, it's this life cycle of highs and lows. But like you said, being consistent, um, and going through just and knowing that you are going to go through these highs and lows, whether it's business,
yeah,
personal, the market, whatever it is, just know that you can look at the end of the year and like, dang, that was a lot of stuff that happened this year, but I
yeah.
got on the
We
under other
forget to
end of
do
that.
that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I think, somebody had mentioned over the holidays, it's like we grind so hard, we're so hard on ourselves every day, but sometimes you need to, like, stop and look back and, and see what's happened, and you're like, "Wow, like, I really put a lot of pressure on myself," and so I'm giving myself time to recover, rest, but then you look back, you're like, "I've accomplished a lot." And
Mhm.
so, I think Chris also talks about this too, is we need to appreciate those small wins, or, we need to, celebrate those small wins because we're gonna go through those tough times.
Yeah.
Like, we've been in the business now, what, Tim? Like, in the real estate business, like 2 years now at this point.
Mhm,
And,
mhm.
how many people that started around the same time are no longer in the business, or it
Yeah,
either got
that's
too
very true.
hard or maybe other opportunities came up, which there's nothing wrong with that. But that just shows, like, this shit is hard. Like,
Right.
we're not here to sugarcoat anything. Like, I'm sure, Tim, you've had times where you're like, damn, like, why? Like, is this the right move? Maybe at some point, right? Where you're like, I don't know
Yeah.
if this is hard. And I know you've gone through some, other businesses where, maybe it just didn't work out. But for me, even sometimes, and just talking to other people, like you're still in that business, and you're not at a certain level, and it's just like it is what it is. Like everybody's
Mhm.
situation's different.
Yeah.
And I started writing sticky notes where I'm like, I'm not going to compare myself to anybody. First off, like
Mhm.
the only competition is myself. I'm in competition with
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
Um, and I blew 2021 Gladia out the water, like, at this
Mm.
point, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
being, December 28th, 2022. I blew out December 28th, 2021 Gladia. Like, I'm in
Mhm.
a whole, like, mentally everything. I'm just in a whole other category compared to where I was a year ago, and that's how we should look at things.
Mhm.
I think that was the biggest thing is, um just focus on what works for you, and don't worry about the noise, but appreciate how far you've come.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we don't give ourselves enough credit.
Yeah. I agree to that because when you're in it, like, the whole year was just been, like, ups and downs or whatever, and you're just in it, and then, your personal life and things happen there, and then the year's up. Like,
Yeah,
where'd it go? Like, it went pretty quick, and then, I guess we don't really, kinda recap maybe in the middle of the year or every quarter, which we should do for our business and say, "Okay, what's going on?" Should I give myself flowers to come so far, And I can like with you, I've come so far since the first day I started in real
yeah,
estate and picked up a lot of things and learned a lot of things from a lot of people, yourself included, and it's just been an amazing journey. But I think sometimes, we get knee deep in the weeds that we forget what the journey is all about, right? And
right.
we don't enjoy the moment. And I think that's one of my TikTok posts is, enjoy the moment in the real estate journey. And I just did a reflection of like thing pictures and going back to what has happened. And I was like, man, I've done a lot in
Yeah,
real estate, and that's and when you realize that, I think that kinda pushes you to do better the following year, right? How can
absolutely.
you do better business-wise? How can you do better, cash flow-wise? How are you gonna do better with relationships and networking? How are you gonna do better in your personal life? So, I think all of that is just a reflection of how you're gonna be better as a person, business person, um so it's just one of those things that, the reflection also, helps you succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And may I can attest, like, you never, anytime I talk to you, you were never like, super negative. Like, you may just be like, oh, this is tough, but you always had that
Mhm.
positive outlook. And I think that's what's brought you success as well, is like you bring that like positive like aura when, like, with anybody you meet.
Mhm.
And so, like, I think I'm really happy and excited to see, like, what you have going on, and so glad, like, towards the end of this quarter, things finally started coming through, because I know, like, stuff dropped here and there,
Yep, yep.
throughout the year that maybe, would have been helpful, yes,
Yeah,
and
for
maybe other
sure.
people in that circumstance maybe would have quit because it's so hard, and I think that's why so many people quit, because they're so close, and then, like, the ball drops or something happens, and they're like, "Well, I tried." And it's
Mhm.
like, "No, you're just beginning. That's just the
Yeah,
beginning."
yeah, it's the beginning, like, we're still early in our real estate career,
I
and
know,
we've
that's
done
like,
so
we're
mu
so hard on ourselves, but, like,
Right,
it's like people have been doing this for 10 plus years, and we're,
I know.
we're just in year 2, and, we have so much other stuff, that we both kind of work, a 9 to 5 in a way, or, you're kind of working your, side gig, but, like,
Mhm.
it's like it takes time, and that's why the conversation yesterday with Chris, it's like it's the long game.
It
Like, you
is,
wanna
it's the
get
long
wealthy,
game.
like, it takes time. There are gonna be those, like, rare occasions where maybe people can really skyrocket in, like, 3 to 4 or 5 years, because they're just beasts, just, like, took their
Mhm.
goal and, like, just ran with it. Um, but I think we can't compare ourselves to
No,
those
you can't.
people.
No, no.
So I think I think you're right. I think the main focus is you took a bet on yourself, right? You invested in
Mhm.
yourself. And that was one thing I didn't mention either is I invested in like coaching and mentorship this year as well. And that's what's like you miss out on things. And so I think it's
Mm.
important that you reflect. And I think I talked about this last year on this time when we were talking about goal setting is every quarter should be a new year, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
that's good.
going into like people usually wait until December 31st to write their goals for 2020, whatever. And then they never look at it, right? Or they never assess it because things change all the time. So at the end of Q1, so like what that's like March 31st, you should
Yeah.
take some time out to like look at, okay, how are things going? How assessing, right? Okay, what are my goals for Q2? Do they align with my main goals? And this you should always have kind of the angle in sight, like a vision, right? Of like how you want your
Mhm.
life to be. Do they all align? Okay, maybe I need to make some tweaks here and there. 3 months is usually a good amount of time. If things are working, you shouldn't change that, right? And
Mhm.
and so you continue on every quarter, and that's what we mentioned is like assess. And that's what kind of brings you. There's just something about a new year, right? Where it's like there's the possibilities are endless. I can do anything. But if you're not keeping up with what's going on, you're not assessing, you're not pivoting. Like
Mhm.
for us, we talked about the market shift. Experienced investors knew this 6 months ago, maybe, right? Like
Mhm.
Chris,
Mhm.
this is why I think it's important to have like be in a coaching program or something is because he had been telling us, I think in like Q2, like
Mhm.
in spring, he was saying like something's shifting. I'm reading the news, and that also gave me motivation to start reading the news. I never used to like be that kind of person that's like, oh, let me
Mhm.
read the Wall Street Journal or Business Insider or there's all these other ones as well. The Real Deal, there's
Mhm.
and now it's like through knowledge, it's crazy. Like now it's like, oh, I know what's happening. Like
Right. Right.
you're able to make decisions quicker with the more experience. So I think it's huge. I think it takes a lot of things, but you just learn
Mhm.
along the way. Like don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. And I think, I wanna touch on, what you said, like, don't compare yourself to other people, and I think now it's easy to do because of social media and, you're seeing other people's successes or you're not where you wanna be in life and, you're at a certain age and you should be here, should be there. You're actually where you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
At that point. I mean, you are. It's up to you on, improving that situation, or continuing down the same path. Like, so it's really kinda up to you, and, if you invest into yourself, self-care, learning how to improve what you're gonna do, how to change, maybe your career or, get into real estate or whatever it is, I mean, it's really kinda up to you and,
Right.
how you're gonna grow, and don't but you shouldn't care about the successes of others. It's great to encourage that, encourage them, encourage your friend, encourage your colleagues to do better, but don't compare yourself to them. Do what you need to do because your time isn't their time and your
Mm.
success is different from their success. So that's kind of,
Yeah.
what
That's
I
a great
wanted to
one.
touch on.
I think yeah, that's the problem is we compete with others instead of ourselves, right? And instead of looking at them like, man, Tim just closed another deal again. I'm going to reach out
Mhm.
to Tim like, hey, I want to learn like how can I help?
Mhm.
Like, and that's kind of what we were talking about last night too. Is like join the people who are doing deals and see how you can help them so they can help
Mhm.
you. So I think that's kind of the mindset I'm gonna go into in 2023 as well, and we can kind of,
Mhm.
like, shift into, like, our 2023 goals. But one thing is I wanna reach out to as many people that are in my network that are maybe in, like, a similar market or whatever it is, and I want to be like, I want to be better. I like what you're doing with this, like, you know, let's help each other out. So that's kind of
Mhm.
like one of the things I'm really leading heavy on is like reaching out to more people. I think before, I don't know, I'm that type of person that I don't like to ask for help.
Mhm.
Just be, I don't know, it's just I don't know if it's cultural or just like it's just how it's been. I was a really shy person. I was really scared of what like people thought at a very young age. So I hated having to like reach out to people and
Mhm.
just be like, hey, I need help. But now I'm just like, whatever. Like, hey, what's going on? Hey, how like what are you doing? What are you doing in your business? Like, I want to know, like, how did you come up with that process?
Right.
So that's something I want to do more of, and mentioning like, hey, I need help with this. Like, and I see that you're actually really good at this. So what, how can we help each other out? Because we all have
Mhm.
specific skills, right?
Sure.
So that's one main thing I wanted to focus on. But what's kind of your, and you don't have to say out your goals, but what are a few points that you want to focus on in 2023, Tim?
I think, just solving the cash flow puzzle, like, so, I'm gonna be really concentrating on that. I mean, I think I've learned a lot through this year. So, I'm gonna start implementing different cash flow, opportunities and strategies, for the business. And then utilizing some of the successes in my commercial real estate to help, overall, help automate a lot of stuff that's in my, wholesaling business too. So just rearranging some of the revenues that are coming in to support, different sides of the business. So I think that's a really big part of it. And then just I think networking on a, um, larger scale and,
Yeah.
more and not kind of, getting more into, like you're saying, like, what are people doing? Let's if we're going to this event, just learning about what people how they're doing their business and, sharing
Mhm.
what I'm doing with my business. And so, and then, a big part of what I've done in the latter part of this year was trying to help individuals get into real estate, and this is what it's all about, with this podcast as well
Yep.
too. So just kinda growing that base, and we have some things going on with our podcast and
Right.
getting people in to learn and, having a course and stuff like that. So, that's a big part of, going into 2023, for the both of us,
Right.
on that side of things. So that's kind of, some of my, I guess, goals for 2023 going into there, and just, understanding, um, now that I know that the consistency is gonna be there because 'cause we've been through it for the
Yeah.
last couple years, right? So it's just minimizing the the gaps of the highs and lows, like
Mm.
reducing those, right?
Keeping that momentum
Uh,
going.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, which we were talking about offline, which is like the hard, well, I think we mentioned a little bit, but like having that consistency, like sticking to your process and
Mhm.
sticking with it, and like finding ways to measure it. Um yeah, those are great goals. I know you're going to reach them. And I think it's just like simplifying things, right? Like
Yeah.
not overthinking, not overcomplicating things. That's sort of like the main one of my goals is to simplify everything. So it's like I think before, it's easily to get distracted, right? Like you have commercial, you have multifamily, you have
Mhm.
wholesaling, you have this and that. I think for me, I was adding too much to my plate because I thought I could handle it. And
Mhm.
I think if I really focus on it, I could, but it's just not sustainable that way.
Yeah.
So for me, like 2023, I'm just all about simplifying everything, not just like the automation in my business, but just like my strategies as well. So instead of just being like, well, let me do multifamily here and I'll do commercial here, it's just like, all right, I'm focusing on owner finance, wraps. Like that's it.
Mm.
and the whole and mixing it in the wholesaling, because my marketing process is going to be the same either way. It's just the
Mhm.
strategy of those are a little bit different of how I dispo them. So it's like, no, this deal isn't for me. I'm going to wholesale it, or yes, this deal is for me. I'm going to take it down myself.
Right. Right.
Because my you mentioned cash flow. For me is also cash flow. I want to make as much money per month that replaces my W-2 income. Like that's a first start, at least, right?
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
attainable. I'm not asking for 1 million a month or anything crazy like that, which yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Like let's start with there. And then I want to add more doors. So my goal is to focus on getting more doors,
Mhm.
using this strategy and just seeing how far I go. Let's see where that takes me. Don't want to add a ceiling per se, but I think just simplifying everything from like my personal finance and like automating those. So like having the
Mhm.
separate bank accounts. So like, we're in control of what our money's doing and our money is working for us.
Mhm.
I think living below my means as well. Going into this market, just understand like, okay, well, how much money are we spending on this and that? Like, or like, let's, because it's the long game. So people
Mhm.
usually want their, instant satisfaction, right? On like, or instant gratification in terms of like, all right, I'm a buy a car because
Yeah.
it's the thing to do. I'm in my 30s. I've worked really hard for it. But it's like, does a $700 month payment make sense when we're,
Mhm.
have one source of income or two, even two? Like, no,
Mhm.
probably
Yeah.
not. That shouldn't be something we focus on. So, we're in a really good position. So we're just going to focus on like having our that cash flow, our net profits from like all the income that comes in versus our expenses be as large as possible so that we can use it to, build a savings, for investments. I want to
Right.
diversify too. Like I've been investing in stocks as well. Just having the extra income for freedom. You know what I mean? Like it's that's what it's all about. Yeah, I mean it's a long game. Like, and that's what I was thinking. Like, why am I rushing into these changes? Like, let me just
Mhm.
take it one step at a time. Um, so I think those are the one of the major ones, but I think another one is also and shout out to my guy Dre,
Yeah.
always
Dre is
holding it down. If you join the U man, the best morning call ever. He gets you pumped every morning. So shout out to him, and I hope
yeah,
you staying
definitely a
warm out there,
blessing,
man.
man.
He's talking about 5-degree weather, and I'm always giving him a hard time about how it was 80 on Christmas.
It was
Um,
80.
it's not
Woo,
normal,
it
man. It's
felt
not
good in
normal.
shorts.
um, but anyways, I think for me it's also connecting with more people. Like I was
Mhm.
just talking about, um, is reaching out to people if they need help. Like, hey, let's help each other out, right? Like let's
Mhm.
see where we can connect with each other. And I think this is will happen more through networking events as well, which is one of my goals too. And um is going out and meeting as many people that are way smarter and doing way better than I am. In because I feel like that's maybe something I didn't do enough of this
Mhm.
past year. Um, and just even just meeting Kilani for breakfast in LA, like
I
that was
know,
a
that was
huge
dope.
thing for me. And I was like, I want to feel this more. Like I want to
Mhm.
feel like I'm not I don't have my stuff together. Like I want to feel like that inspiration of like, wow, she
Mhm.
really has it going on, or they really have it going on. How do I get to their level? And also
Mhm.
knowing if they ask you, how can I help you?
Right.
Having
Right.
an answer too. So,
You have an answer still for that?
man, that's a good question. I think the main thing is just how do you like utilize how to network properly, how to use people to not
Mm.
use people, but you know what I mean,
Mhm.
um like while you're learning how to use people's knowledge to your to your advantage, or how while you're helping people out, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
um really I guess creating an efficient process and like how I network with people. So like
Yeah.
um really being intentional with these relationships, like because
Mhm.
it's one thing to be like, all right, yeah, nice to meet you, but it's like how do you take it to the next level?
Right.
That's like one thing
Right.
that just comes right off the top, but I know I need to get better at it. But what would be your question?
Um, I think, it's for her, she was heavily in the commercial, so I
Yeah,
think, during that breakfast, I asked her about, you know, um, the relationship of deals and how, if this deal doesn't work for somebody, then I should, and that kinda really enlightened me instead of pigeonholing, just concentrating on one source of funds instead of
right.
multiple sources of funds. So, I think that was the question. I mean, that kinda blew my mind a little bit just because I had to hear it from someone else, not
Yeah,
from, maybe Chris or yourself or someone, so
yeah.
just having her perspective on that was pretty mind opening. So that's another thing is that when you talk to different people,
Your
something might
perspective, things
unlock.
wheels start turning.
Yeah, something might unlock where it didn't unlock for someone else that said the same thing in a different breath, right? So
Right, or maybe like you said, they've been saying the same thing, but it's maybe the way they delivered it
yeah,
that
absolutely.
like struck, that resonated with you. And that's the thing too, it's like maybe paying attention to what other people like really are saying and like picking up the patterns too of like,
Mhm.
"Oh, you're the 3rd person that said that. I wonder I wonder if it's something I need to, like, look into too." So it's just, um yeah, I think this is why, like, attending networking events, I'm like, I wanna be around hella billionaires, hella multimillionaires, even though, like, it can feel like, "Oh, I'm just a little thing compared to them." But again, like, that's me comparing myself, but still,
Mhm.
you feel that presence of, like, somebody who's, like, you know, a big timer.
Right.
And, they're just regular people, of course, but I'm like, I wanna, like, be in that presence of people that have
Mhm.
been doing it and, like, just soak up as much knowledge as I can and add whatever value I can to them.
Yeah.
There's always something you can offer, but I think that's the beauty of, like, going to events or just meeting new people, especially that are higher level than you are.
Yeah. You definitely have to have that in your Rolodex, people that are in, the millions and billions of dollars and getting perspective from them and how you can learn from them, but also provide some value to them
Mhm.
with your experiences. It doesn't have to be. It could be a personal experience, it could be a business experience or whatever they're learning from you because maybe they didn't have the same life that you did. So,
Right.
I think that, perspective is in the person that, you know, you connect with, for sure, because the way they grew up is not the way you grew up, and the way you do business is not the way they do business, but sometimes it just meshes, you know, it just works where the puzzle fits,
Yeah,
and I think, each person, whether they're highly successful or getting into the business, they can definitely learn from each other.
absolutely. Yeah, man. It's been quite the ride. I know we're a little bit past the half hour point, but I think it was much needed to just kind of recap. I think it's been a huge thing, and yeah, I mean Teresa here, networking and adding value. I mean, and anybody I've talked to, at least who I've reached out and have mentioned, like, um, getting to know them, they're like networking. If anything, you learn like that is the biggest skill
Yeah,
that's needed, is like,
100%.
and it doesn't have to be anything complicated, just make it about them, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
remember, like, hey, if they ask, like, just be prepared to ask, like, "What do you need?" But don't come with what you need first,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So, great
yeah.
episode as always. We had to end with a bang. Like, we had to end our last episode with a bang.
For sure, for sure.
So, just kinda going into the new year, like, clear, mind cleared, just focused, we're just ready to kill it. Um, so it's been a pleasure, working with you in this last year. I think it's been tons of fun,
Likewise.
but I'm super excited for where, this upcoming year is to come with all the things we have lined up. And we promise you guys we're going to do more interviews,
Mhm.
maybe even travel out to some people, and be in their environment, see what they have going on, what they have cooking. So again, appreciate you guys for all the support over the past year, and obviously the continuous
100%.
support. And yeah, like
Yeah,
how else do you end that?
appreciate it. Yeah, no, I mean, drop the mic there. So I think you said it well. So we appreciate y'all, and it's been quite a journey this year, and we continue that journey next year, and we hope to give you more great, valuable content that you can utilize in your personal life and business.
Absolutely. All right, fam. Well, appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday. We'll have some exciting topics coming up. Hopefully, we start the year with an interview of some sorts. But have a
Let's do
great
it.
rest of your week. Happy New Year.
Happy
Happy
New
with you
Year.
guys. See y'all